Having this hearing, and I want to thank the folks who've testified today. I appreciate your testimony and your expertise. I really don't know where to start, so we'll start here. I'm going to start with you, Mr. Lee. When we're talking about data breaches and the potential for identity theft, has anybody done any work to find out how much of this identity theft information is coming from the private sector and how much is coming from government agencies?
We actually track the source of information based on the publicly noticed data breach reports.
Yep.
So we can tell you,
Can you give me any sort of statistics on data breaches? How often? I'm talking about I don't know. Severe is in the eyes of the beholder, but how many are happening in government versus business?
So let's just look at this quarter.
Yeah.
Which was completed last week. There were 446 data breaches. 21 of those were from government agencies.
Okay. And so we are basically talking in today's hearing, though I assume on the private sector businesses, correct? Although they're all important. But we're talking about empowering the FTC. And I wouldn't think the FTC has power over the Veterans Administration, but who knows? I want to clarify some things up, but it's not to get you and Ms. Risch to fight. But you had said that some of the states that had strong laws were Maine, California, and New York. Is that from a notification standpoint, or is that from a data security standard standpoint?
It's actually from both. And one of the things that you're seeing at the state level is this convergence of what historically has been three silos. We've had privacy laws as one silo, we've had identity management as one, and then we've had cybersecurity. And there was very little cross-pollination. But now what we're seeing is that as states are beginning to adopt stronger laws, there are actually cybersecurity, privacy, and identity elements in all of those laws.
Yeah, so and this may be an unfair question because once again, the viability of the law is in the eye of the beholder, but would you say that half the states have adequate security laws, or 3/4, 30 out of 50, well, however you want to do it?
Well, every law is helpful. But we've gone through a period of transition where a lot of the states have sort of caught up to more common kind of data. A lot of the states, probably about half, don't recognize biometric data.
Would you agree, not to get you to fight, but would you agree with that, Ms. Risch?
According to the state legislative website, half the states have data security laws.
Oh, and half have none at all?
All of the states have breach notification laws.
Okay, all right.
Yes.
And I might be able to get to that if time goes on. This is a question for Kate Tumarello. Sorry if I botched your name. But there was an answer to one of the questions that said what the FTC needs is the authority to prescribe practices. Doesn't matter where I believe. Well, actually it does if we pass a law. But as a representative of the startups, how do you feel about that?
I think the FTC could be empowered to set out, a menu of options, right? Not every cybersecurity and data security practice is going to make sense for each company, but there are things that everyone should be doing, and there are certainly things that lots of folks that handle sensitive data should be doing, or folks that handle a lot of data should be doing. And so having a flexible framework that allows companies to pick and choose the things that make sense for their companies.
Okay. So let me give you an example, and I don't know, I think the name of the company was D-Link, Professor, isn't that correct? I don't know if they're a startup, I don't know if they've been around a long time, but it would seem to me the FTC should say, clean up your act or we're gonna fine you till you don't exist anymore. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I think the D-Link example is a great example of not just sensitive data, but kind of sensitive technical capabilities being baked in, and it would make sense for the FTC to have especially prescriptive ideas there.
So they could be very prescriptive, is what you're saying?
For a company handling sensitive data and sensitive technical capabilities.
All right. So this is just for my curiosity, Ms. Risch. And by the way, I'm not picking on anybody. I appreciate all your testimony very, very much. But could you give me the definition of non-sensitive data versus sensitive data? And if not you, we'll turn to the professor.
I think that people regard simple name, and addressed these days,
So-
since it's out in the public domain as fairly non-sensitive.
Let me ask you this. I'm a farmer in my real life, and I drive down the road, and there's a implement behind me that has a computer on it that's collecting everything that I do, how much seed I put in the ground. I don't use fertilizer, but if they use fertilizer, they could do that. They can, I mean, all sorts of data. And some people don't think that that's sensitive data. Do you think that's sensitive data?
I actually don't think the distinction is that relevant, because if you have a scalable data security program, you're going to provide security for all your data. You just may provide more security for data that
I understand that.
Yeah.
But the question becomes, for me, is the beauty's in the eye of the beholder. I think that that data is sensitive, and I don't want anybody else to have it, even though my name isn't attached to it. I don't want people to have it, because the way computers work this day, they can figure out who's doing it. And so, go ahead.
I think the issue is that companies have limited amount of money, or many companies, especially the one Kate represents. And you should be taking care of all your data and trying to make sure it isn't breached. But when you have, when it's something, when a system is going to cost a lot of extra money to protect something in a really, really secure way, you want to make sure it's the really sensitive stuff.
good
like
stuff. Thank
kids
you.
or
Thank
health
you.
or, yeah.
I'm sorry I ran over,
Yeah,
Madam
Thank
Chair.
you, Senator Fisher, and then Senator Klobuchar.